How do I even start a video? I really don't know. I honestly don't know how to start a video. It doesn't make any sense. All right, so it's about that time I finally make a tutorial on how I animate album covers. I dissect them and animate them using both Photoshop and After Effects. It's a really simple, straightforward process, kind of a little bit. It took me a little bit to get this whole streamlined process down, but I feel like I should be able to explain how I do everything in just one simple video. And the whole process starts in Photoshop. So the album art I'm going to be using as an example in this video is going to be Flower Boy by Tyler, because it literally checks all the boxes for what you're looking for when you're doing this whole animation thing. It has a really solid foreground, very good depth toward all the way towards the background, and also just a bunch of miscellaneous stuff that you can throw in the middle. And if you're wondering what this website is, this is the website I use to get all my album covers. It literally has every album, basically every album cover you can be looking for in high resolution. You can see here it's very high quality. You can really get in here, and I'll link it down in the description below if you just want to find it. All you have to do is select album, type in the album, and get the artwork, and it'll come up here. Literally has everything, so good resource to use. Now I've already dissected this picture so many times that I already have it down, broken down layer by layer. But basically what you want to do is find the foreground that you're looking for, which I chose the foreground to be these flowers. Now there could be different layers of foreground, not just one simple foreground, but in this one I just have the flowers, and then right after that it's the cutout of Tyler that I have here. Even though I already have all these layers already dissected, let's go through the process of making the foreground. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this background, and I'm gonna grab this and solo it. Right, now you could already imagine how you would cut Tyler out. You would just go around and simply just do the cutout with the pen tool, but we're not going to do that here since that's already so simple. I'm going to do something a bit more complex like the flowers here, and how you would rebuild the background or rebuild the flowers that are behind Tyler, how you would do that. Okay, so when we get to this part, it's a complete guess. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a complete guess. And you kind of just want to assume where you think the flowers would be. So if I just start, making some random shapes here, I'm like, oh, that looks like a flower. There we go. Actually, you know what? It really doesn't matter. You can just go and do whatever you want with this as long as it connects up nicely over here, because it all makes sense once I whip out the clone stamp tool. You'll be able to see what we can do about that. Okay, so now that we have this selection made of all the flowers that we're going to be cutting out, we want to go ahead and go to make selection, and we're going to do a feather of about 2 pixels. That usually works out well for me. And then we're going to actually go to select up here and do select inverse right there and hit delete on your keyboard. So now that we have just this here selected on this layer, you can go ahead and also rename this. It's going to be very helpful. I'm going to name this flowers, right? And now is where we're going to get into the clone stamp tool. Don't forget to deselect. You can do deselect like that, or Control D, either way works. Okay, so the way the clone stamp tool works is you grab your clone stamp tool, and as you can see, it already shows you, if you hold Alt, this is the little crosshair that comes up, and you want to go ahead and click on where you want to start copying from. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to copy from the left side of the leg here, and we're going to copy that and paste it over to the right. And this doesn't have to be perfect because a lot of this stuff is going to be behind, unless you're doing like a specific kind of animation where it's completely blank. But you really just kind of want to start pasting things over from the right to the left. And this one's a bit more difficult once again with this pattern. But once again, it's going to be behind stuff, so you don't have to worry too much about this. And here's where things get a little difficult. Now up here on the top, this is where I really just copied the flowers from over here and kind of made its own like kind of border, repeating the flowers. And it doesn't have to be too perfect because you can erase towards the edges if it doesn't look too good. And you can just take a flower from all over here and just paste it like that. And then you can take some flowers from over here if you really wanted to. Paste that over here. And it starts to look like an actual picture. Now over here we have this kind of repeating pattern, and we don't exactly want that. So we're going to mix in a little bit of flowers from over there. Now you can clearly still see some leg here. Basically what you want to do is make sure that there's no like obvious repeating patterns. All right, so now that we have the flowers cut out and also clone stamped so that we have this just nice continuous pattern of flowers, you want to repeat that same process for the hills. As you can see, there's one layer of hills right behind the flowers. I already went ahead and did that one right here. As you can see, there's that layer, and then the layer all the way in the back, you want to go ahead and do that one as well. And that one's right here. And you can use the clone stamp tool to repair things like putting this path right back in, because as you can see, that path is cut off right here. You can just use the clone stamp tool to build it right back on. Should be pretty easy. All right, so the next part that really sells it is you want to do some simple cutting out. Like you can take this the pen tool and very easily cut out this bumblebee or this cloud and have it as its own thing, the different clouds. And that's what really sells it, is when you start to do that. Like this cloud right here, you can use the repair or the clone stamp tool to finish it off. That's what I did. And I ended up with this cloud right here. As you can see, that's how it looks like when you just isolate it by itself. And you want to get each thing on its own individual layer. That's the important part. So now that you have all this layered out, you want to go ahead and save. That's all we're going to do in Photoshop for now. That's everything you need to do right there in Photoshop, doing the whole breakdown layer by layer. And now is where we move into After Effects. So now that we're in After Effects, you want to go ahead and find where you saved the Photoshop file of the album cover that you just broke down into different layers. You can go ahead and drag the whole thing in, and you want to import it as a composition and have the editable layer styles selected. So now it has its own little composition here, and we can open that up. And here we already see all the different layers that you have here. It's better that, of course, you want to label your layers so it's easier to identify. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth here in this video, but basically you want to make a camera, and you can copy these settings. This should be the default settings for the camera. You can make it just like that, and you want to take everything that you're going to be animating and make it 3D. Now, for me personally, it's easiest to work with 2 views enabled so that you can see the different layers pretty easily. And right now on this second view, you want to highlight the second view. Just click on the left side, and you want to set this to custom view 1. It's going to be, it should be around this angle. If not, you can use the camera tool up here in the top left to really rotate it to however you want. So as you can see, everything is just flat right now, but this is where we want to separate our layers by distance. Now you can just leave you want to start with your foreground. You can just leave your foreground here where it is, but I like to work with better numbers. So what I'm going to do is select all the things that I'm going to animate or to show depth, and I'm going to hit P on my keyboard, and this shows the position. So I will be keeping my foreground at 0 just for ease of remembering, and then you can move each thing around that. So I'm going to start with moving the background all the way to the back. As you can see now, we can see the depth starting to kick in, right? I'm going to set this number to, I usually go to around the farthest thing back to like around 20,000 to get that really, like, to get true depth in there. So as you can see, it's completely gone now. You can't even see it. So you want to go ahead and go to, you want to highlight that layer and hit S, and you can start to scale it up for it to match here on the right. So now it fits back here, right where it was. And you can see it in the custom layer view like this now. All right, so next up is the grass layer, this other hill that we have here. Now you want to get depth between the very far back hill and the stuff in the front. So you want to get this number, last number we put around 20,000. We can do 5,000 in front of that. So we can just put this one at 15,000. And now this is in between the two. And of course, we're gonna have to scale this one up as well so that it fits back to where it was earlier. So now we're starting to really see that depth that we have here. Kind of hard to see because they're both just green, but we'll see once we start moving this around that that depth is starting to really show. Next up, we have the cloud. Now this one's where you can really mess with anything. I kind of want the cloud to be in between the two hills. So we have this one. So we have to really choose any number between 15,000 and 20,000. I'm gonna go with 17,000 for the cloud and rainbow. That should be good. And then you got to scale it up and place it where you want it to be. And then last but not least, we're gonna have to do Tyler here. Move him back maybe about 7,000. I'm just estimating at this point. 7,000 should be good. And then we're going to scale him back up to fit the frame. Just, and you don't have to fit it perfectly, that scale. You can always move it down a little bit to match if you want the depth to be a bit better. We're going to go ahead and grab the camera tool, look around. Everything looks to be okay. And not everything has to look perfect in this frame. But here I'm going to grab the dolly tool. And as you can see now, there's depth in this when we move forward. Okay, so now that we have everything put together, I'm not going to go too in depth on what you can do with camera, but you can go ahead and animate Z rotation as well as Z position. And if we go ahead here and set a keyframe at the beginning where we're really zoomed in as well as rotated like this, we can go ahead and do a little short animation where we go backwards. Oops, I accidentally typed in the wrong value. Go backwards and rotate like this. Quick little animation to do just like that. But of course, there's a lot more you can do. I'm not going to go too in depth here, but if you guys want me to make a full-on tutorial on how to do different animations and how to control camera, that's our basic tutorial for today. If you guys want me to go in depth on how to do more animations, like things that I've done in the past or things that I plan on doing, I'd love to do that. Just let me know by liking the video, subscribing. Let me know in the comments what kind of tutorials you want to see in the future. I'd love to make them. I'd love to go in depth on how to do different things with the camera or do different things with animation or puppet tool even. It's another thing I love to do. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys want to see next with the tutorials, and I'll gladly make more.